the cat who waited after the world ended. They said the city was empty. They said no one survived the blackout. But every night at exactly 2:17 a.m., a small orange cat sat beside a broken traffic light and waited for someone who was never supposed to come back. The day the lights died, the blackout didn't arrive with fire or chaos. It arrived like a held breath. One moment the city hummed with artificial life, the next it fell into a silence so deep it felt unnatural, as if the world itself had paused to listen. Screens blinked off across thousands of buildings. Elevators froze mid-air. Trains halted between stations. Digital billboards, once shouting color and desire, went black, leaving behind only reflections of frightened faces. Emergency sirens wailed, echoing between glass towers as evacuation orders rolled through the city. Leave immediately, the broadcasts repeated. Do not return. There was no time for hesitation. No time for explanations. In the chaos, cages were forgotten, doors were slammed shut, and leashes were dropped. Pets, once cherished, became afterthoughts in a city that only valued efficiency. Ember, a small orange tabby with a cloudy left eye and a frayed blue collar, was standing near a bus stop when everything unraveled. His ears flattened as the noise rose, his heart racing with confusion. His human, Myra, was forced onto the final evacuation bus. She screamed his name, her hands pounding against the glass as the doors sealed shut. Ember ran after the bus, claws scraping pavement, meowing until his voice cracked. When the bus disappeared into the dark tunnel, Ember stopped. The city stood empty around him. And for the first time in his life, he was completely alone, the waiting place. Hunger arrived quickly. The city no longer fed itself, and neither did Ember. Trash bins were sealed. Stores were locked. The street smelled like metal and rain instead of food. Ember learned to survive by instinct, drinking rainwater from cracks in the road, stealing warmth from sunlit concrete, curling beneath abandoned cars at night. Yet no matter where he wandered during the day, he always returned to the same place when night fell. A broken traffic intersection where the signal light flickered endlessly on red. It buzzed softly, powered by a dying backup battery. Myra used to meet him there after her late shifts. She'd kneel, scratch his chin, and whisper apologies for being late. Ember remembered the sound of her footsteps. The smell of her jacket. Every night at exactly 2:17 a.m., Ember sat beneath that red light and stared down the empty road. Cars never came. People never appeared. But Ember stayed. Because promises, to him, didn't expire the storm without warning. Weeks passed, then months. Seasons shifted without ceremony. Grass cracked through pavement. Buildings began to decay without power to hold them together. One evening, the sky darkened unnaturally fast. Clouds stacked on top of one another like bruises, heavy and swollen. Weather satellites detected the storm too late. A superstorm, violent, unpredictable, headed straight for the abandoned city. Authorities marked the area as a total loss. No rescues. No returns. Nature would reclaim what humans abandoned. Rain fell sideways, stinging like needles. Wind tore through alleyways, lifting debris into the air. Ember crouched beneath the flickering traffic light, soaked and shaking, but unmoving. His fur clung to his thin frame, his cloudy eye blinking against the rain. This was the night. He felt it. And still, he waited, the sound under the rain. At 2:17 a.m., the storm screamed loud enough to drown the city itself. Thunder rolled endlessly, shaking the ground. Ember's ears twitched. Something was wrong. Or right. Through the roar of rain, he heard a sound that didn't belong, footsteps. Careful. Human. His heart slammed against his ribs as a beam of light sliced through the darkness, bouncing across broken pavement. Hello, a trembling voice called out. Is anyone here? Ember stood slowly, water dripping from his whiskers. He opened his mouth and let out a soft, cracked meow. The flashlight dropped. And the world held its breath. The one who returned. Myra stood frozen in the rain, staring at the cat she had buried in her heart as a memory. Ember, she whispered, her voice breaking apart as she dropped to her knees. Ember ran to her, pressing his small body into her legs, purring through exhaustion and disbelief. Myra sobbed into his fur, apologizing again and again. For leaving. For surviving. For coming back so late. Around them, the recovery team shouted warnings. Buildings groaned. The storm intensified. The ground shook violently as a nearby high-rise cracked down the middle, its foundations long rotted. Myra scooped Ember into her arms and ran. Seconds before the intersection collapsed behind them, the city was officially sealed after the storm. No rebuilding. No reopening. It became a dead zone on maps. News reports spoke of infrastructure loss and economic impact, but not of the cat who waited. Ember woke up days later in a warm apartment, sunlight spilling across the floor. A new collar rested around his neck, simple and soft. The tag read, "I waited." Myra watched him sleep, guilt and gratitude tangled in her chest. She never took night shifts again. Some promises, she learned, were worth reorganizing an entire life. And every night, Ember slept knowing the waiting was over. Time moved on, as it always does. The world forgot the city. Maps erased it. But stories lingered, quiet ones, told between animal lovers and survivors. Ember aged gracefully, his cloudy eye dimming but his spirit intact. Sometimes, at 2:17 a.m., he lifted his head and listened. Not for footsteps, but for reassurance that the world was still kind. Love didn't survive. Because it was strong. It survived because it refused to leave. Somewhere, someone is still waiting. And maybe, that's enough. If this story moved you, like to honor animals who never give up. Subscribe for more emotional animal stories. Comment, would you have come back? Because loyalty doesn't disappear when the world ends.